I stood in the conference room facing CEO Marcus Whitfield and his daughter-in-law Jessica, who screamed about unauthorized training expenses totaling $57,000. Jessica waved printed bank statements accusing me of embezzlement. I remained calm, knowing this confrontation was orchestrated. The room filled with tension as other employees peeked through glass doors. Marcus stayed silent while Jessica demanded immediate termination and threatened criminal charges. My 3 years of dedicated IT management flashed before my eyes as I realized my carefully laid plans were about to unfold. 6 months before that explosive confrontation, I discovered something that would change everything. My name is Ashlyn, and I had been the IT director at Whitfield Technologies for 3 years. Our company specialized in healthcare management systems serving major hospital networks across Texas from our Austin headquarters. I graduated from MIT with a computer science degree and thought I had found my dream job working with cutting-edge medical software. Marcus Whitfield, the 58-year-old CEO, had built the company from nothing 25 years earlier. He was a brilliant engineer who understood both technology and business. His son Brandon worked in marketing, though his contributions were questionable at best. Brandon's wife Jessica served as CFO despite having no financial background beyond a bachelor's degree in communications from a small state college. That Tuesday morning in March, I was performing routine server maintenance when I noticed unusual patterns in our financial database, large payments to vendors I didn't recognize, all approved by Jessica's electronic signature. The amounts were significant. $15,000 here, $22,000. They're always just under the $30,000 threshold that required board approval. I printed the transaction reports and studied them in my office. These payments were supposedly for software licensing and consulting services, but the vendor names seemed generic. Advanced Solutions, Group Premier Tech Services, Global Systems Consulting. No specific addresses beyond post office boxes in different states. No website listings when I searched online. No corporate registrations in the Texas Secretary of State database. My cybersecurity training kicked in immediately. This looked like fraud, but I needed more evidence before approaching anyone. Jessica held considerable influence over Marcus, and Brandon would obviously side with his wife. I couldn't risk making accusations without bulletproof documentation. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly investigated further. Using my administrative access to the network, I discovered that Jessica had been creating elaborate digital paper trails. She fabricated email chains with these fake vendors, complete with professional-looking quotes and service agreements. The sophistication impressed me even as it horrified me. Taylor, our 45-year-old HR manager, mentioned during a casual lunch conversation that Jessica had been working late frequently, often staying in the office until 9 or 10 at night. That struck me as odd since Jessica typically left promptly at 5, claiming she needed to pick up her twins from daycare. I decided to investigate those late nights. Using the building's security access logs, which ran through our IT systems, I discovered Jessica was accessing the financial servers at unusual hours. She was also using conference room workstations instead of her office computer, probably thinking those sessions wouldn't be traced back to her personal login. One evening, I stayed late myself and watched the security cameras remotely from my office. Jessica arrived at 7:30 and went straight to conference room B, carrying a laptop bag and several manila folders. She spent 3 hours there, occasionally making phone calls and typing intensively. When she left, she took everything with her. The next day, I checked the conference room B workstation's browser history. Jessica had visited several offshore banking websites, cryptocurrency exchanges, and something called Paradise Financial Services, based in the Cayman Islands. She had cleared most of the browsing data, but fragments remained in the system cache. My investigation intensified. I discovered that Jessica had been systematically embezzling client funds by creating fake vendor invoices and having payments sent to accounts she controlled. The fake training company payments were just one small part of a much larger scheme involving hundreds of thousands of dollars. During a cybersecurity conference in Dallas, I received an urgent text from Devin, our 26-year-old senior developer. Jessica had been in my office that morning, claiming she needed to check something on my computer for the quarterly audit. Devin thought it was suspicious since audits didn't typically require accessing IT staff computers. When I returned to Austin that Thursday afternoon, I found my office door slightly ajar. My computer screen showed signs of recent use, even though I always locked it before traveling. I immediately ran diagnostic scans and discovered that someone had installed keylogging software and copied files from my personal work folder. The pieces suddenly clicked together. Jessica wasn't just embezzling money, she was setting me up to take the fall. Those fake training expenses would be attributed to me, making it appear as though I had been using company funds for personal education courses that I never actually attended. I rushed to check my email access, but Jessica had already been busy. My login credentials had been changed, and I was locked out of several critical systems. She had moved faster than I anticipated, but she made one crucial mistake. In her haste to frame me, Jessica forgot that I had administrative override capabilities built into the network infrastructure. Within hours of discovering Jessica's setup, I activated emergency protocols I had installed when first designing the company's security systems. Every IT director learns to build backdoors for crisis situations, though I never imagined I'd need them to investigate my own CFO. From my home computer, I accessed the hidden network monitoring tools I had placed throughout our servers. These captured every keystroke email and file transfer happening on company systems. What I discovered over the next 72 hours was far worse than simple embezzlement. Jessica had been running a sophisticated corporate espionage operation. She was selling our proprietary healthcare software algorithms to TechFlow Solutions, a competing firm based in San Antonio. Their CEO, Jake Morrison, had been paying Jessica substantial sums for insider information about our client contracts, security vulnerabilities, and upcoming product developments. I reached out to Rachel, a cybersecurity consultant friend working in Denver. We had graduated from MIT together and maintained contact through professional conferences. Using encrypted video calls that couldn't be monitored by Jessica's surveillance software, Rachel helped me analyze the evidence I was gathering. The scope of Jessica's crimes was staggering. Over 18 months, she had stolen nearly $400,000 through fake vendor payments. Additionally, she had sold confidential client data to TechFlow Solutions, violating federal healthcare privacy laws that carried serious criminal penalties. Rachel advised me to document everything meticulously and prepare for legal action. She recommended attorney Sarah Collins, who specialized in corporate fraud cases and had successfully prosecuted similar schemes involving technology companies. During my first consultation with Sarah Collins, held at her downtown Austin office, I presented 3 boxes of printed evidence: bank records showing payments to Jessica's personal accounts, email intercepts proving her communication with TechFlow Solutions, screenshots of her accessing confidential client databases without authorization. Sarah was a sharp 41-year-old attorney who had built her reputation defending whistleblowers against corporate retaliation. She reviewed my evidence with growing amazement, occasionally whistling softly at particularly damning documents. The legal situation was complex, Sarah explained. Jessica held significant power within Whitfield Technologies due to her family relationship with Marcus. Any direct confrontation would likely result in my immediate termination and possible criminal charges, since Jessica could claim I had hacked company systems to frame her. We needed a different strategy. Sarah suggested gathering additional evidence while simultaneously protecting myself from Jessica's escalating schemes. This meant documenting her continued criminal activity while ensuring she couldn't successfully frame me for embezzlement. My investigation revealed that Jessica had a serious gambling addiction. She owed substantial money to online casinos and had borrowed against her home equity to cover losses. Her desperation was driving increasingly reckless behavior as she tried to steal enough money to satisfy her creditors. Brandon, her husband, was complicit in the scheme. He had signed false documents and provided cover stories for Jessica's suspicious activities. However, I discovered that Brandon was having an affair with Lisa Rodriguez, our 29-year-old office manager. Jessica was using this information as leverage to ensure Brandon's cooperation, threatening to divorce him and seek full custody of their twins if he didn't help with her schemes. The family dynamics became even more disturbing when I learned about Marcus's health condition. His physician, Dr. Patricia Hayes, had diagnosed early-stage Alzheimer's disease 6 months earlier. The diagnosis was kept confidential at Marcus's request, but Jessica had been exploiting his declining cognitive function to gain power of attorney over company decisions. Medical records from Dr. Hayes's office, which I obtained through legitimate channels with Sarah's help, showed that Marcus's condition had been deteriorating faster than expected. However, something seemed wrong with the progression. Alzheimer's typically develops gradually, but Marcus was experiencing sudden episodes of confusion, followed by periods of normal clarity. Sarah suggested we consult with a toxicologist she knew. Dr. Michael Chen at the University of Texas Medical School reviewed Marcus's symptoms and medical test results. His conclusion was shocking. Marcus's cognitive decline appeared consistent with deliberate poisoning using mild psychoactive drugs that could mimic or accelerate dementia symptoms. This revelation transformed our investigation from corporate fraud into something far more sinister. Jessica wasn't just stealing money. She was systematically poisoning her father-in-law to gain control of the company and cover her tracks. With this new evidence, Sarah advised immediate action. We needed to involve law enforcement while simultaneously protecting Marcus from further harm. However, we also needed to ensure that Jessica couldn't complete her plan to frame me for embezzlement and destroy evidence of her own crimes. I began secretly backing up all company data to secure servers I established under a shell corporation called Ashtec Solutions. Using my technical expertise, I transferred critical systems to a secure facility across town, ensuring that Jessica couldn't delete evidence or access proprietary software she was selling to competitors. The deeper I investigated, the more elaborate Jessica's criminal network became. She had established relationships with vendors' clients and even some employees who unknowingly participated in her schemes. Unraveling this web would require perfect timing and coordination with law enforcement. As my investigation reached its climax, I realized that Jessica was accelerating her timeline. She suspected someone was monitoring her activities and planned to complete her scheme quickly before anyone could stop her. My firing was just the beginning of her endgame strategy. The evidence I uncovered during my deeper investigation revealed a criminal enterprise that extended far beyond simple embezzlement. Jessica had spent months cultivating relationships with industry contacts who helped her steal and sell our proprietary technology. Jake Morrison, the 52-year-old CEO of TechFlow Solutions, had been purchasing our software algorithms through Jessica for nearly 2 years. Their communication, which I intercepted through careful network monitoring, showed a systematic plan to drive Whitfield Technologies out of business while acquiring our intellectual property at bargain prices. The conversations were damning. Jessica provided TechFlow with detailed client lists, pricing strategies, and upcoming product announcements. In exchange, Morrison paid her through offshore accounts that she used to fund her gambling addiction and maintain her lifestyle while embezzling from legitimate company accounts. I placed audio recording devices in the conference room where Jessica conducted her secretive phone calls. These recordings, obtained legally under Texas single-party consent laws, since I had legitimate access to company facilities, captured dozens of incriminating conversations. In one particularly revealing call, Jessica discussed sabotaging our largest client relationship with MedCore Hospital Systems. She had intentionally introduced security vulnerabilities into their software installation, planning to blame the problems on my department, while TechFlow Solutions offered to fix the issues at a substantial cost. The financial trail became clearer as I traced payments through multiple banks and shell companies. Jessica had established at least 7 different business entities to receive stolen funds. Paradise Financial Services in the Cayman Islands was just one node in a complex network designed to hide money laundering activities. Brandon's role in the conspiracy was more significant than I initially realized. He wasn't just covering for his wife, he was actively participating by signing false contracts and providing access to marketing data that Jessica sold to competitors. However, Brandon was also being manipulated through his affair with Lisa Rodriguez. Lisa, our office manager, was unaware that Jessica knew about the relationship. I discovered this when reviewing security camera footage that showed Jessica following Brandon and Lisa to a restaurant across town. Jessica had hired a private investigator to document the affair, gathering evidence she could use in divorce proceedings while maintaining Brandon's cooperation in her criminal activities. Marcus's deteriorating condition was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the entire situation. Medical consultations with Dr. Patricia Hayes revealed that his cognitive decline had accelerated dramatically after Jessica gained access to his daily medications. She was adding small amounts of benzodiazepines to his morning coffee, creating confusion and memory problems that mimicked advanced Alzheimer's symptoms. The drugging allowed Jessica to convince Marcus to sign documents transferring authority over company operations to her. She had already gained control over bank accounts, vendor relationships, and hiring decisions. Her plan was to gradually assume complete control while Marcus became increasingly unable to manage business affairs. Detective Ryan Burke from the Austin Police Financial Crimes Unit became involved when Sarah Collins presented our preliminary evidence. Burke, a 44-year-old veteran investigator, had seen similar cases involving corporate family members exploiting elderly executives. He agreed to open an investigation while keeping our cooperation confidential. Burke's team began surveillance of Jessica's activities, including her visits to offshore banking facilities and meetings with TechFlow Solutions representatives. They also started monitoring her computer activities through legal warrant procedures that complemented my internal network surveillance. The investigation uncovered additional victims within our company. Jessica had been systematically overcharging client accounts and pocketing the differences. She manipulated billing systems to add false consulting fees, equipment charges, and service upgrades that never actually occurred. These schemes affected dozens of healthcare organizations across Texas and neighboring states. Client complaints had been increasing, but Jessica deflected blame onto technical departments while secretly arranging for TechFlow Solutions to approach these frustrated customers with competitive offers. She was deliberately damaging our reputation to benefit her criminal partner while stealing money from both her own company and our clients. As the investigation progressed, I realized that Jessica suspected someone was monitoring her activities. She began varying her routines using different computers and communicating through encrypted messaging apps. Her paranoia was justified, but it also made her more dangerous. The discovery that shocked me most was finding evidence that Jessica had attempted to poison me as well. She had been adding small amounts of mild toxins to the coffee maker in our IT department break room, trying to cause chronic fatigue and cognitive problems that would make me appear incompetent and justify my eventual termination. Blood tests arranged by Sarah's medical contacts confirmed the presence of industrial cleaning solvents in my system at levels that could cause neurological symptoms. Jessica had access to these chemicals through the building maintenance supplies and had been systematically dosing the coffee that only IT staff typically consumed. This personal attack transformed my motivation from professional duty to survival instinct. Jessica wasn't just stealing from the company, she was actively trying to harm anyone who might discover her crimes. The situation had become life-threatening, and immediate action was necessary to protect both Marcus and myself from further poisoning attempts. With Detective Burke's guidance, we developed a comprehensive plan to expose Jessica's criminal network while ensuring she couldn't escape justice or destroy evidence. The plan required precise timing and coordination between law enforcement legal proceedings and my technical countermeasures. Jessica's acceleration of her criminal activities indicated that she planned to complete her scheme within days. She was preparing to fire me, destroy evidence, transfer remaining company assets to accounts she controlled, and potentially flee the country with her stolen funds. Our window for action was closing rapidly. Working with attorney Sarah Collins and Detective Burke, I developed a comprehensive strategy to expose Jessica's crimes while protecting myself and Marcus from her increasingly desperate actions. The plan required careful coordination between legal, technical, and law enforcement elements. My first priority was securing all company data and intellectual property. Using my administrative access, I began transferring critical servers to a secure facility I had leased under Ashtec Solutions, the shell corporation Sarah helped me establish. This process took several nights of careful work, moving systems during maintenance windows when Jessica wouldn't notice the downtime. The server migration involved more than just physical relocation. I had to ensure that all proprietary software client databases and financial records were protected from Jessica's attempts to delete evidence or steal additional information. Each system was carefully documented and backed up to multiple secure locations. Sarah Collins worked with federal prosecutors to prepare criminal charges against Jessica for multiple violations including wire fraud, money laundering, computer crimes, and assault through poisoning. The case required extensive documentation that met federal evidence standards while protecting the ongoing investigation. Agent Maria Santos from the FBI Financial Crimes Division joined our team after reviewing the evidence of interstate fraud and money laundering. Santos, a 38-year-old investigator with expertise in corporate cybercrime, was impressed by the scope and sophistication of Jessica's criminal enterprise. The federal investigation expanded our understanding of Jessica's network. TechFlow Solutions was connected to several other companies involved in industrial espionage and healthcare fraud. Jake Morrison had been purchasing stolen technology from multiple sources, building his business through systematic theft of intellectual property. Meanwhile, Jessica's behavior became increasingly erratic as she sensed the investigation closing around her. She began working even later hours, often staying in the office until midnight while attempting to access systems and delete files. Her paranoia manifested in random security checks and questions about employee activities. I maintained my normal work routine while secretly gathering final pieces of evidence. Using mobile recording devices, I captured Jessica's phone conversations with her gambling creditors, who were threatening violence if she didn't pay substantial debts. These recordings explained her desperation and willingness to escalate her criminal activities. The financial evidence revealed that Jessica owed nearly $200,000 to various creditors, including offshore gambling operations that used intimidation tactics to collect debts. Her home equity loans, credit cards, and personal savings had been exhausted, making company theft her only remaining source of funds. Brandon's situation became more complicated as Jessica increased pressure on him to participate in document fraud and false testimony. She threatened to expose his affair and seek full custody of their children unless he signed papers transferring additional company assets to accounts she controlled. Lisa Rodriguez, the office manager involved in Brandon's affair, became an unwitting source of information when I approached her about unusual financial requests Jessica had been making. Lisa revealed that Jessica had asked her to prepare false employment verification letters and salary statements for loan applications, suggesting additional fraud beyond what we had already discovered. Dr. Patricia Hayes. Marcus's physician agreed to cooperate with our investigation after learning about the poisoning. She modified Marcus's medication routine to eliminate Jessica's access, while secretly conducting blood tests to document the presence of illegal substances in his system. The medical evidence was crucial for establishing attempted murder charges against Jessica. Dr. Hayes' documentation showed a clear correlation between Jessica's access to Marcus's medications and his cognitive decline episodes. When the poisoning stopped, Marcus's mental clarity improved dramatically. Judge Thomas Brennan in federal court approved warrants for Jessica's arrest and seizure of all related financial accounts. The warrants covered her personal assets, the offshore accounts receiving stolen funds, and any property purchased with embezzled money. My technical preparations reached completion as I finished transferring all critical systems to secure locations. The company's servers, databases, and intellectual property were now protected under Ashtec Solutions ownership, legally established through documentation, showing my personal development of much of the proprietary software. The intellectual property protection was crucial because I had personally written significant portions of our healthcare management software during my 3 years with the company. Sarah's legal research confirmed that employees retain ownership rights to code they develop, especially when employer contracts don't specifically assign those rights to the company. This legal framework would allow me to maintain control of critical systems even after Jessica fired me, preventing her from destroying evidence or selling additional technology to competitors. The Ashtec Solutions structure also provided a legitimate business entity that could continue serving our clients during the transition period. As we approached the confrontation date, I rehearsed my responses to Jessica's expected accusations. The key was maintaining composure while she presented her fabricated evidence, allowing her to commit additional crimes that would strengthen the case against her. Detective Burke's team positioned surveillance equipment around the office building to monitor Jessica's activities and ensure she couldn't escape when arrest warrants were executed. Federal agents coordinated with local police to cover all possible exit routes and secure company premises. The timing had to be perfect. Jessica planned to fire me on Friday morning, expecting that the weekend would give her time to destroy evidence and transfer remaining funds before anyone could investigate her accusations. Instead, that confrontation would trigger the coordinated law enforcement response that would end her criminal enterprise. Agent Santos confirmed that federal prosecutors were prepared to file charges immediately after Jessica's termination attempt. The evidence package included financial records, recorded conversations, medical documentation, and technical proof of computer crimes that painted a complete picture of her criminal activities. My preparation included arrangements for continuing company operations after Jessica's arrest. Devin and several other employees had agreed to testify about workplace harassment and suspicious activities. Taylor from HR had documented Jessica's policy violations and inappropriate access to confidential personnel files. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose the full scope of Jessica's crimes while ensuring she couldn't escape justice or cause additional harm to Marcus, the company, or other employees. Everything depended on maintaining the element of surprise while she walked directly into the trap she had created for herself. Friday morning arrived with an unusual tension in the office. Jessica had scheduled the meeting for 9 o'clock sharp, choosing the main conference room with its glass walls that would allow other employees to witness my public humiliation. She wore her most expensive business suit, clearly intending this to be a triumphant moment in her criminal campaign. Marcus sat at the head of the conference table, looking confused and frail. Dr. Hayes had gradually reduced the medications Jessica had been tampering with, but his recovery was still in progress. Brandon stood behind his father, nervously fidgeting with papers while avoiding eye contact with anyone. Jessica entered with a thick folder of printed documents and a laptop displaying what appeared to be financial records. Her opening statement was delivered with theatrical anger, designed to convince Marcus and other observers of my guilt. "Ashlyn, we have discovered serious financial irregularities in your department," she announced loudly enough for employees in nearby offices to hear. "You have been using company credit cards to purchase expensive training courses for personal benefit totaling $57,000 over the past 6 months. She spread printed bank statements across the table, highlighting charges to various training companies. Advanced Leadership Institute, Premier Technology Certification Global Management Systems. The documentation looked professional and convincing to anyone who didn't know about the sophisticated fraud scheme behind these fake transactions. "These expenditures were never approved by management," Jessica continued, her voice rising with manufactured indignation. "You forged authorization signatures and created false justifications for courses you never attended. This constitutes embezzlement and fraud against Whitfield Technologies." Marcus studied the papers with obvious confusion, his cognitive function still impaired from months of poisoning. He looked between Jessica and me, clearly struggling to understand the technical aspects of the accusations. I maintained the calm demeanor I had rehearsed, knowing that my response would be recorded by surveillance equipment and potentially used as evidence. "Jessica, I understand your concerns, but I believe there may be some confusion about these transactions." "Confusion!" she snapped back. "The evidence is clear. You have stolen company money for personal education expenses. We are terminating your employment immediately, and we will be pursuing criminal charges for embezzlement." Brandon stepped forward with a prepared termination letter, his hands shaking as he placed it on the table. "I'm sorry, Ashlyn, but the evidence speaks for itself. You need to clear out your office immediately." This was my moment to spring the trap. I reached into my briefcase and removed a folder containing legal documents Sarah Collins had prepared. "Actually, there are several things you should know before proceeding with this termination." Jessica's confident expression faltered slightly as I opened the folder. "First, you're correct that company money was spent on training. However, those funds were used to establish comprehensive legal and technical protections for the company's intellectual property and data systems." I handed Marcus a copy of the Ashtec Solutions Incorporation documents. "I used company resources to create a secure subsidiary that now holds all of our servers' databases and proprietary software. This was necessary to protect these assets from the sophisticated embezzlement scheme that has been operating within our financial department." The blood drained from Jessica's face as she realized what I was saying. "What are you talking about? You can't just steal company property." "I'm not stealing anything," I replied calmly. I'm protecting intellectual property that I personally developed and that is now threatened by ongoing criminal activities. The servers and software are safely maintained under Ashtec Solutions, which will continue providing services to our clients during this transition period. Marcus looked at the documents with growing comprehension as his mind cleared. Ashlyn, what do you mean by criminal activities? I placed another set of documents on the table. Sir, over the past 6 months, I have documented extensive evidence of embezzlement, money laundering, computer crimes, and assault through poisoning. Jessica has been systematically stealing company funds while selling our proprietary technology to competitors. Jessica lunged toward the documents, trying to grab them, but I had prepared copies. Those are fabricated lies. She's trying to cover up her own theft. At that moment, Detective Burke and Agent Santos entered the conference room with several other law enforcement officers. Jessica Whitfield, you are under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, computer crimes, and attempted murder. The arrest proceeded quickly and professionally. Jessica screamed accusations at me while being handcuffed, claiming I had hacked company systems and fabricated evidence. Her desperation was obvious to everyone watching as federal agents read her rights. Brandon collapsed into a chair, finally understanding the full scope of his wife's crimes. I didn't know about the poisoning, he whispered to Marcus. I thought it was just the financial stuff. I was trying to protect the kids. Agent Santos addressed Marcus directly. Mr. Whitfield, we have extensive evidence that your daughter-in-law has been adding illegal substances to your medications and food to impair your cognitive function. You will need immediate medical attention to address potential ongoing effects. Dr. Hayes, who had been waiting outside, entered to examine Marcus and arrange for blood tests that would document the poisoning's effects. The medical evidence would be crucial for the attempted murder charges against Jessica. Meanwhile, other federal agents were executing search warrants throughout the building, seizing Jessica's computer's files and any evidence related to her criminal activities. They also secured the financial records I had gathered, ensuring that all documentation would be available for prosecution. Media attention arrived quickly as word of the arrests spread. Amanda Price from Channel 8 News positioned cameras outside the building, reporting on the developing story of corporate fraud and family betrayal at a prominent Austin technology company. The immediate aftermath was chaotic, but my preparations ensured that company operations could continue. Devin and other technical staff worked with Ashtec Solutions to maintain client services, while law enforcement completed their investigation. Within hours, federal prosecutors announced charges against Jessica, including 19 counts of wire fraud, 7 counts of money laundering, multiple computer crimes, and attempted murder through poisoning. The evidence package was comprehensive enough to support conviction on all charges. Jake Morrison from TechFlow Solutions was arrested simultaneously at his San Antonio office, charged with conspiracy and receiving stolen property. The coordinated law enforcement action prevented him from destroying evidence or fleeing. By the end of that Friday, Jessica's criminal enterprise was completely exposed and dismantled. Her offshore accounts were frozen, her assets were seized, and she faced decades in federal prison. The woman who had tried to frame me for embezzlement was now facing justice for her own extensive crimes. Marcus, his mind clearing as the poisoning effects diminished, looked at me with profound gratitude and understanding. Ashlyn, I owe you an apology and much more. You saved the company and probably saved my life. The weeks following Jessica's arrest brought dramatic changes to Whitfield Technologies and everyone involved. Federal prosecutors moved quickly to build their case while I worked to restore normal operations and rebuild trust with employees and clients. Marcus's recovery was remarkable once Dr. Hayes eliminated all traces of the substances Jessica had been using to poison him. Within 2 weeks, his cognitive function improved dramatically, and he was able to participate fully in company management again. The blood tests confirmed the presence of benzodiazepines and other drugs that had been mimicking and accelerating dementia symptoms. The legal proceedings against Jessica moved forward rapidly due to the overwhelming evidence we had gathered. Federal prosecutors charged her with 19 counts of wire fraud, 7 counts of money laundering, 5 counts of computer crimes, attempted murder through poisoning, and conspiracy to commit industrial espionage. Brandon faced his own legal challenges, charged with conspiracy and document fraud for his role in signing false papers and covering up Jessica's activities. However, his cooperation with investigators and his testimony about the gambling addiction and threats he faced led to a plea agreement for reduced charges. TechFlow Solutions collapsed within a month as the extent of their involvement in industrial espionage became public. Jake Morrison faced federal charges for receiving stolen property and conspiracy, while several of his employees were arrested for their roles in purchasing and implementing stolen software code. The financial recovery process was complex but successful. Federal agents traced and froze accounts containing over $400,000 that Jessica had stolen through various schemes. Asset forfeiture proceedings began to recover her house cars and other property purchased with embezzled funds. Client relationships required extensive repair work. Many healthcare organizations had experienced problems with their software installations due to Jessica's sabotage, and several had begun negotiations with TechFlow Solutions before learning about the criminal conspiracy. I spent countless hours meeting with client representatives explaining what had happened and demonstrating the security improvements we had implemented. The fact that I had protected their data and prevented additional breaches helped convince most clients to maintain their contracts with Whitfield Technologies. Marcus formally apologized to me in front of all company employees, acknowledging that I had risked my career and personal safety to protect the company and his welfare. He announced that I would serve as interim CEO while he focused on his health recovery and the legal proceedings. The transition to leadership was challenging but rewarding. Employees who had been suspicious of my investigation now understood that I had been protecting their jobs and the company's future. Devin Taylor and others who had supported me during the crisis formed the core of a new management team committed to ethical practices. Employee morale improved dramatically once Jessica's harassment and manipulation tactics ended. Several staff members came forward to describe how she had intimidated them, stolen credit for their work, and created a hostile workplace environment that had led to high turnover rates. Media coverage of this case was extensive, with national business publications covering the story of corporate betrayal and eventual justice. The Wall Street Journal published a detailed article about the case written by journalist Peter Cross, which highlighted the importance of cybersecurity and ethical leadership in technology companies. Industry recognition followed quickly. The Austin Technology Council presented me with their Ethics in Business Award for protecting client data and exposing criminal activities despite personal risk. Several cybersecurity organizations invited me to speak at conferences about detecting and preventing internal fraud. Business consultant David Park worked with us to implement new governance structures and financial controls that would prevent similar crimes in the future. These included mandatory rotation of financial responsibilities, enhanced audit procedures, and whistleblower protections for employees reporting suspicious activities. Our client base actually expanded as word spread about our commitment to security and ethical practices. Dr. Elizabeth Stone from Regional Medical Center, one of our largest clients, recommended us to other healthcare organizations that were looking for technology partners they could trust completely. The Ashtech Solutions subsidiary proved to be an excellent business structure that allowed us to offer enhanced security services while maintaining operational flexibility. Marcus agreed to formalize the arrangement, making Ashtech a permanent part of the corporate structure, with me as its president. Financial performance improved significantly as we eliminated the costs of Jessica's theft and sabotage. Revenue increased by 40% within 6 months as new clients signed contracts and existing clients expanded their relationships with us. Personal growth during this period was profound. Leading a company through crisis had taught me skills I never expected to develop. Negotiating with federal prosecutors, managing media attention, and rebuilding client relationships were experiences that transformed my understanding of business leadership. The most satisfying moment came when Marcus offered me permanent ownership of a significant portion of the company. "Ashlyn, you saved Whitfield Technologies in every possible way," he said during a private meeting 6 months after Jessica's arrest. "I want to ensure that you have the authority and resources to continue building the company according to your vision." The ownership transfer included both Ashtech Solutions and a controlling interest in the parent company. Marcus retained an advisory role and continuing ownership, but operational control shifted to me as the new CEO. This arrangement protected his legacy while ensuring that the company would continue growing under ethical leadership. Brandon's situation was more complex. His plea agreement required him to serve 2 years of community service and pay restitution for his role in the document fraud. However, he was allowed to continue working in a reduced capacity while he rebuilt his relationship with his children and addressed his personal problems. Lisa Rodriguez left the company to pursue other opportunities, but she provided valuable testimony during Jessica's trial about the harassment and manipulation tactics that had created the toxic workplace environment. Her departure was amicable, and she maintained professional relationships with several former colleagues. The trial preparation process revealed even more extensive evidence of Jessica's crimes. FBI forensic accountants discovered additional offshore accounts and traced money laundering activities that extended back almost 3 years. The total amount of stolen funds exceeded $600,000. Federal prosecutors expressed confidence that Jessica would receive a substantial prison sentence, likely 15 to 20 years, given the scope of her crimes and the aggravating factors including attempted murder through poisoning. Her attorney's attempts to negotiate a plea agreement were unsuccessful due to the overwhelming evidence and the severity of the charges. As we approached the 1-year anniversary of Jessica's arrest, Whitfield Technologies had been completely transformed. We had doubled our staff, expanded into new markets, and established partnerships with major healthcare organizations across the Southwest. The experience taught everyone involved valuable lessons about trust vigilance and the importance of ethical leadership. Marcus often spoke about how the crisis had ultimately strengthened the company by forcing us to examine our values and improve our practices. 2 years after Jessica's dramatic arrest in our conference room, I stood at the podium of the Austin Convention Center addressing 500 technology executives at the Southwest Cybersecurity Summit. The woman who had once been accused of training fraud was now recognized as a national expert in corporate security and ethical leadership. Whitfield Technologies had grown beyond anything we imagined possible during those dark months of investigation and crisis. Our revenue had tripled, we employed over 150 people, and our healthcare management software was being used by major hospital systems across 12 states. The company culture transformation was perhaps the most rewarding aspect of our success. We implemented transparent financial practices, employee ownership programs, and comprehensive ethics training that became a model for other technology firms. Several business schools now teach case studies based on our experience with corporate fraud and recovery. Marcus had made a complete recovery from the effects of Jessica's poisoning, though the experience changed his perspective on business and family relationships. He remained actively involved as chairman emeritus, while I handled day-to-day operations as CEO and majority owner. Jessica's sentencing hearing took place 18 months after her arrest. Federal Judge Margaret Thompson imposed a 22-year prison sentence after reviewing testimony from dozens of victims affected by her crimes. The judge specifically noted the aggravating factors of attempted murder and the systematic betrayal of trust that had characterized Jessica's criminal enterprise. Brandon completed his community service requirements and underwent counseling for the trauma of discovering his wife's crimes and his own complicity in them. He eventually returned to work in our marketing department in a limited capacity, focusing on rebuilding relationships with clients who had been affected by the crisis. The financial recovery exceeded our expectations. Asset forfeiture proceedings recovered nearly all of the stolen funds, which were returned to company accounts and used to expand operations and compensate affected clients. The offshore accounts contained additional money from other criminal activities that was distributed to victims through federal restitution programs. TechFlow Solutions declared bankruptcy and ceased operations, with Jake Morrison receiving an 8-year federal prison sentence for his role in the industrial espionage conspiracy. Several other companies connected to the stolen technology network were also prosecuted, sending a clear message to the industry about the consequences of corporate theft. Client relationships that had been damaged during the crisis became stronger than ever, as healthcare organizations appreciated our commitment to transparency and security. Dr. Elizabeth Stone from Regional Medical Center became one of our strongest advocates, recommending our services to colleagues across the medical industry. The cybersecurity consulting division I established through Ashtech Solutions grew rapidly as other companies sought help protecting themselves from internal fraud and external threats. We developed specialized services for healthcare organizations, financial institutions, and government agencies that required the highest levels of data protection. Industry recognition continued with awards from the National Cybersecurity Alliance, the Healthcare Information Management Association, and the Better Business Bureau. These honors reflected not just our technical capabilities, but our commitment to ethical practices and client service excellence. Personal growth during this journey was profound. Leading a company through crisis testifying in federal court and managing media attention were experiences that developed skills I never knew I possessed. The shy IT director who once worried about approaching her CEO with concerns had become a confident business leader, comfortable with public speaking and strategic decision-making. The scholarship program we established for women in technology became one of my most meaningful achievements. Named the Marcus Whitfield Ethics and Technology Foundation, it provides full college funding for 20 students annually who demonstrate both technical aptitude and commitment to ethical practices. Marcus often reflected on how the crisis had ultimately strengthened our company and his family relationships. Sometimes the most painful experiences teach us the most valuable lessons, he said during our annual company meeting. Ashlyn didn't just save our business. She showed us what real leadership looks like under pressure. Employee satisfaction surveys consistently ranked Whitfield Technologies among the best places to work in Austin's technology sector. Our profit-sharing programs, professional development opportunities, and commitment to work-life balance attracted top talent who appreciated our values-driven culture. The most important lesson learned during this experience was the power of patience and preparation when confronting injustice. My months of careful investigation and evidence gathering made it possible to expose Jessica's crimes completely while protecting innocent people from additional harm. Trust, once broken, requires consistent effort to rebuild, but the result can be stronger than the original relationship. Clients, employees, and partners who supported us through the crisis became our most loyal advocates because they had seen our character tested under the worst possible circumstances. Family dynamics within the Whitfield family also improved as the truth eliminated the tension and manipulation that Jessica had created. Marcus developed closer relationships with employees and clients, while Brandon learned valuable lessons about personal responsibility and the consequences of enabling harmful behavior. The technology industry took notice of our story with several major corporations implementing enhanced internal audit procedures and whistleblower protections based on recommendations from our experience. The case study was featured in Harvard Business Review and other publications as an example of effective crisis management. Looking back, I realized that discovering Jessica's initial embezzlement was actually fortunate timing. If her crimes had continued for another year, the financial damage and client impact would have been devastating. The investigation that seemed so risky at the time ultimately saved dozens of jobs and protected numerous healthcare organizations from data breaches. Today, Whitfield Technologies stands as proof that ethical leadership and technical excellence can overcome even the most challenging circumstances. We faced betrayal, fraud, and attempted murder, but we emerged stronger because we refused to compromise our values or abandon our commitment to doing the right thing. The experience taught me that sometimes the greatest betrayals become opportunities for the most profound transformations. When people we trust violate that trust, we can choose to become bitter and suspicious, or we can use the experience to build stronger systems and relationships based on transparency and accountability. Have you ever faced a situation where doing the right thing required tremendous personal risk? I'd love to hear about your experiences with standing up for truth and justice in the comments below. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about overcoming workplace challenges, and share this with anyone who might be facing similar situations. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right, despite the fear. I hope my experience encourages you to trust your instincts and never give up fighting for justice, no matter how powerful your opponents might seem.